This episode of Trestle Tactics is proudly presented by Gordon Food Service.
Welcome to Trestle Tactics, a tips from Trestle short. We wanted to know what's going to make our podcasts more valuable to you. And the answers were simple. You want easy to implement tactics and strategies that will let you create an outstanding experience around your senior living food and hospitality programming. So let's dive in right now on today's Trestle Tactics. Welcome back to another episode of Trestle Tactics. I'm your host, Aaron Fish, and today we're going to continue our lean thinking conversation by diving into a topic that can make or break your senior living food service operation, creating efficient workflows. Now, I know what you're thinking. Aaron, come on. Workflows are so boring. But trust me, it's anything but. Efficient workflow is the secret sauce that can transform your kitchen from chaos to a well-oiled machine. So let's roll up our sleeves and dive into it. First things first, why should you even care about workflow? Well, it's really simple. A smooth workflow can dramatically boost your productivity, reduce stress from your team, and ultimately lead to happier residents. It's all about working smarter, not harder. Think about it. How many times have you seen staff members running around like chickens with their heads cut off during meal service? Or how often do you hear complaints about long wait times or cold food? Chances are these issues probably are coming from an efficient workflow. So how do we spot these workflow bottlenecks? It starts with observation. As a manager, you need to put on your detective hat and really watch your operation in action. Here's a few things I recommend. First, choose a busy area. Start by focusing on one of your most complex, busiest areas. This could be the main kitchen during a lunch rush or the corner of the dining room during the dinner meal service. Second, observe at different times. Don't just watch during one shift or on a weekday or during lunch service only. Observe at various times and days, which will really give you a comprehensive picture. Third, look for the 7 wastes. Keep the 7 wastes of lean thinking in mind as you're observing. These include transport, inventory, motion, waiting, overprocessing, overproduction, and defects. Remember Tim Wood. And lastly, ask why. When you see something that doesn't seem right, ask why it's happening. Is a team member walking back and forth repeatedly? Why is that? Is there a lot of downtime? Why? This is where our 5 whys process comes in super handy to really dive in deep. Now, let's think about some common workflow issues that you might see. First of all, excessive walking. If your staff is constantly crisscrossing the kitchen, that's obviously wasted time and energy. Secondly, the opposite of that, waiting around. Downtime probably seems nice to your staff, but in a busy kitchen or dining room, it often means there's some inefficiencies somewhere in the process. Third, look for congestion. Are there areas where the staff members are constantly bumping into each other? Because if so, that's a big red flag and a bottleneck you can correct. Fourth, think about repetitive tasks. If someone's doing the same task over and over, maybe there's a more efficient way to perform that task. And then lastly, look at confusing layouts. Is your operation poorly organized? Is there a workstation that's not put together well? Because something like that can really slow down the flow of your operation.
There's nothing quite like taste to take you home. When flavors bring you back to county fairs, and sweetness incites stories of fresh fruits and farmers markets. Whether it's the bold notes of a big city or the rich profile of a coastal getaway, Gordon Choice Regional Favorites taste like home.
So we're looking at all of this now. We've kind of seen some of our struggles, but now we get to the fun part. We're going to fix things, right? So the good news is many workflow problems can be solved with relatively simple changes. Here are some simple strategies that I want you to consider. First, organize your spaces. This applies to your kitchen, your storage areas, your serving areas, and even your dining rooms. Everything should have a logical place and everything should be in its place. Second, really work on creating efficient workstations. Sit down and really design out your workstations properly so employees can take the fewest steps possible in any process or any procedure. The equipment they need should always be within reach, and there should be enough space for them to work comfortably. Third, get the right equipment. Sometimes just making sure that your team has the right tools can make a world of difference. Next, embrace technology. There's so many tech solutions in our world, and senior living is really starting to embrace that. So make sure you're looking at what tech solutions can be implemented to streamline your operations. Ensuring adequate supplies is another idea, because running out of something mid-service is just a workflow killer. Next, think about scheduling smartly. Try to do as much prep work as possible before service and not during meal times. I see this happen so often where, for example, we may delegate plating desserts to our wait staff. Well, if they don't get those prepped up ahead of time, they're doing it during service. And so while yes, maybe plating a dessert only takes 30, 45 seconds, now do that for 90, 100 residents every meal period. Now, all of a sudden, that 30 seconds for 90 residents turns into 45 minutes of wasted time. It really adds up fast. And then lastly, think about the way you're doing cooking and your cooking styles. Are you properly batch cooking? Do you need to do anything like a cook chill, or are you doing a la minute? Whatever you're doing from a cooking styles perspective, make sure that the ultimate end result is that it smooths out your workflow. Now let's talk about the human element of workflow, your staff. Sometimes workflow issues aren't about the physical setup, but about how you're utilizing your team. If you're consistently short-staffed on certain days or shifts, consider moving tasks to times when you're better staffed. For example, if you're always slammed during dinner service but have a quieter afternoon, see if you can shift some prep work to that earlier time. Again, it's all about balancing the workload. Now, before we wrap up, I really want to emphasize just how much of a difference efficient workflow can make. Let's say you have a prep cook. They walk an extra 50 steps per meal due to poor kitchen layout. Obviously, 50 steps doesn't sound like a lot, but if you multiply that by 100 meals per day, now suddenly you're looking at 5,000 wasted steps. Over a year, that's over 1 million steps. And when you do the math out, that's 500 miles of unnecessary walking by just one person. Now think about how you can eliminate that waste. Your prep cook will have more time and energy to focus on food quality. Your meals will likely go out faster and hotter, and your residents are going to be a lot happier. That's the power of efficient workflow. So remember, creating efficient workflows isn't just a one-time thing. It's an ongoing process. So keep observing, keep asking questions, and don't be afraid to make changes. Your team and your residents will thank you for it. So keep it efficient in the kitchen and hospitable in the dining room. We'll see you next time. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Trestle Tactics. Be sure to like and subscribe on any of our channels, YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts, or anywhere you listen to us. Also, be sure to follow us on any of your social media channels at Tips from Trestle. Well, thanks for joining us on this episode of Trestle Tactics.